Hey, this is Kevin.
This is Mark.
And this is Go to the Campus with Crew,
where we learn how to reach teenagers for Christ.
Hey, today we have a really fun topic, and it might sound a little bit like, really? This is sound basic. But we're going into the basic molecular structure of Crew and determining what that DNA is and why those building blocks of our ministry are so important.
They're really the three things that we hold up as the most important things within our ministry. We call them win, build, and send. Frankly, this is why I came on staff with Crew. I looked at a number of different ministries and I saw what Crew does. They really emphasize winning students to Christ, building them up in their faith, and then sending them out. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm kind of excited about doing that.
Yeah, you know, I think of my first time sharing my faith, it was at a Christmas conference, and it was in Chicago. I went to this person's home. They were really old. I was really nervous. They fell asleep when I was talking to them. But that afternoon changed my life.
Really? How's that?
It literally changed my life because I got a taste for how God could use my life in the life of someone else, even when they were sleeping.
That's a big...
They woke up.
Good, eventually.
Yeah.
So in WIN, there's a couple things that happen. WIN is when we share our faith and we help people come to Christ. Now we know God's the one actually winning them, but we talk about the activities that we do toward that end. And we talk about sowing broadly. So we share the gospel as often as we can, wherever we can. And just sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't, but we're talking about Jesus, and it's written into that we're going to get a lot of rejection as a result. But we know that God's called us to do this, and that as a result, people come to know Jesus. So we sow broadly.
It's like seeds. We're just throwing it around. And we're actually building curiosity in students for the message in a relevant way.
Well, you know, there's a couple approaches you can take, and while I'm not saying either of those is wrong, I like this approach a little bit better, where we tell them we're Christians up front, and we want them to know who we are so that they know who to talk to and who to ask.
Yeah, we build a relationship upon the gospel, not for a future date to share the gospel. And I think that's what separates Crew from a lot of great youth ministries.
And it's just a
If
difference.
you join with us, you just have this. And actually, I was talking to a staff. They said, "I've got presentation fatigue this last couple of weeks. I've shared my faith so often," and I'm thinking, yes,
that's great,
because sharing our faith, the winning aspect, is the critical event.
Yes.
When in doubt, we go to the campus, but we're going to the campus because it's the critical starting point.
Yes, and to be clear, we're not doing sharing the gospel in an offensive way. We're not on a street corner preaching, telling them they're going to hell or anything like that, but just in a loving, genuine, relational way. We want to start with the gospel.
It's surprising how open students are, and I'm always surprised when I actually bridge the subject, bring Jesus into the conversation. They don't bat an eye.
They don't mind.
They're ready. Pretty interesting. Yeah.
So the win in the building is then taking those students and developing them spiritually, helping them grow.
Yeah, so this whole follow-up thing is important. And we'll talk about that in another segment called the 6 milestones. But just a brief thing, we can have events all we want.
Right.
And we can have a check on a card, we could have a hand raised, but it really comes down to what do we do at that point?
Yeah.
Are we going to follow up? Are we going to offer some really consistent Bible studies that'll ground them in their faith?
Right, that's right. And so we help follow them up, get them from the point of saying, yes, I want to follow Christ, to, okay, now I understand what that really means and I'm bought into it. And then we help them, we develop them and help to disciple them. So whether that's a regular small group or one-on-one appointments, we want to help them grow to become mature believers in Christ.
Yeah, that's the idea. I think the end game is, we've always said this, that Crew is a network of disciples on a campus who see their campus as a mission field.
Right, that's right.
And so in order to do that, we have to have them come to faith, we have to build them in their faith, and we have to train them as well.
Right. And it's one of the things that I love about what I saw in Crew was that they had all those components. You saw kids that came to Christ through Crew that a couple years later were then sharing their faith, or even a year later.
Oh yeah, and I think if you talk to a lot of students involved in our ministry, they were directly affected by a fellow peer.
Yes, by a student.
Yeah.
Students can share their faith, can affect their friends spiritually.
All right, so win, build, and then the send part is really the exciting part.
Right, so sending is where we help students share their faith, help students lead spiritually. So whether it's taking them on a mission trip out of the States or whether they're leading right there on their own campus, we believe that's an important step. In fact, I personally think that's where a student really begins to own his own faith. Up until that point, you're basically telling them what to think, or you're teaching them, but you're not demanding anything of them so much. They're not having to step out there for themselves. But when they have to share their faith, or when they lead a small group, or when they go overseas with us, however it is, they have to own their faith in a new way. And I think that's really where the power is.
I think sometimes it can be a little daunting when you think about, really, do I have to do all this, win, build, send? But actually, win, build, send follows a very natural and biblical formula for how a person grows in their faith, begins to see as Jesus sees the mission field, and then as we empower them and train and equip them, sending them to reach their own. In fact, we always say this, the best missionary on a campus is a high school student.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, they're with them every day, 12 hours, or 8 hours a day for 12 years. That's a lot of time invested. Our vision in Crew is transform teenagers, taking Jesus to every student anywhere by all means. We want everyone to know, and it starts with transformed students.
Yeah, it really does. And that's the beauty of the Win, Build, Send. That's the end game.
So we've got a question for you. What would you say are the biggest challenges for you in a Win, Build, Send ministry? What are the ones you're like, I like this part of that, but this part's hard for me? Write that in the comments below. And this has been Mark and Kevin with Go to the Campus.
Yeah, this has been more fun than I thought it would be.
It has been.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so when in doubt, go to the campus.